All right, I would like to call the Finance, Ways and Means Committee to order for March 11th, 2025. Madam Clerk, please open the board for roll call. Members, if you would, please sign in and record your attendance for today. Be sure, members, please, at this time, please sign in and record your attendance. Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Mr. Chairman, you have 18 members present. You have a quorum.
All right, thank you very much. Members, do we have any personal orders or announcements before we begin? Hearing none and seeing none, today our calendar includes a total of 7 bills, and that will be followed by budget hearings, and we are going to take up the bills first. So we will begin with item number 1 on our calendar. Item number 1 is going to be House Bill 65 by Chairman Bosso. You have a motion. The second, sir, you're recognized for a brief description.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, members. Members, this is a bill that seeks to add a discretionary power to our city manager commission forms of government. We have 47 city commission forms of government across the state. And what this bill would do would be to add to Title VI a discretionary power that would allow a city manager commission form of government, if it so chose, to enter into a contract with a private entity for the development, construction, or operation of an indoor or outdoor athletic facility. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I stand ready for questions.
All right, members, you've heard the description of House Bill 65. Any discussion? Question's been called. Oh, I see a hand up down there before the question was called. So we are going to go to Leader Camper. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry for the delay there. Representative, right now, they don't have the ability to contract with a private entity. It has to be done by the local government itself.
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, that was the guidance that one of the city manager commission governments in my district, the city of Brentwood, received from a local prestigious law firm and from the comptroller's office.
Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sponsor.
Thank you. Further discussion. Again, we're on House Bill 65. Hearing none and seeing none, we're now voting on House Bill 65, moving on to calendar and rules. Madam Clerk, please open the board. Members, please take the vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Has everyone voted? Madam Clerk, please reveal the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 18 ayes, 0 noes.
All right, House Bill, this motion passes. House Bill 65 moves on to calendar and rules. Thank you, Chairman Bosso. That moves us on to item number 2 on our calendar. It's going to be House Bill 823 by Chairman Lafferty. You have a motion and a second. And it looks like you also have an amendment, which is drafting code 004008. Is that correct?
That sounds correct. Let me put my finger on it. I think we added this one on last time.
Okay.
Oh, 4008. Yes, sir.
Okay, we have a motion second on the amendment. We have a motion and a second on the amendment. This amendment actually rewrites the bill. So without objection, we're going to put this amendment on drafting code 004008 onto House Bill 823 without objection. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes do have it. We're back on the bill as amended.
Thank you, Chairman.
Chairman, you're recognized.
Appreciate that. Thank you, committee. I've got a bill here to allow a couple of new sports parks that are coming online. We're going to have a new stadium, one in Knoxville, Tennessee, and one a little bit later in the year is coming to Chattanooga, Tennessee. What this bill will do, it will allow them to sell wine and spirits as most of our other sports stadiums across the state already do. And with that, I'd be glad to take any questions.
All right, members, you've heard the description of House Bill 823. Any discussion? Here, Leader Camper, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, if this bill were to pass, they could do it without having to get like a local commission to agree to it. This would just allow them to do it when they build it. They can set it up to where they can serve and sell the alcohol.
Chairman Lafferty.
Thank you. So as I understand it, this is for the wine and spirits. The
Yeah.
locals handle the beer licensing.
Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sponsor.
Thank you. Further discussion, House Bill 823. Hearing none and seeing none, are we ready to vote? Madam Clerk, please open the board. Members, please cast and confirm your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Has everyone voted? Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 14 ayes, 2 noes, 4 present not voting.
All right, the ayes do have it. House Bill 823 moves on to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, committee.
Thank you. That brings us to item number 3 on our calendar. It's going to be House Bill 114 by Chairman Moon. You have a motion and a second. You are recognized, sir, for a description.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The 110th General Assembly passed a strong act to provide assistance to Tennessee National Guard members for their bachelor's degree. The 112th General Assembly allowed tuition reimbursement for first-time master's degree and TCAT certificates. The strong act has been a positive impact on both recruiting and retention. The Tennessee Army National Guard is now at 100% force level, and the Tennessee Air National Guard is at 106. This legislation does 3 things. It continues the life of the Strong Act, which sunsets June 30th, 2025. It increases the current cap for undergraduate degrees from 120 to 130 hours, and it speeds up the reimbursement to the educational institutions by requiring tuition reimbursement requests to be reduced from 90 days to 45 days. Mr. Chairman, that's the explanation of the bill.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Moon. Members, you've heard the description of House Bill 114. Any discussion? Chairman Crawford, you are recognized.
This question.
We have a call to move previous question. Any objection to calling the question? Hearing none and seeing none, we're now voting on House Bill 114, moving on to calendar and rules. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Please open the board. Has everyone voted? Would anyone like to change their vote? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 22 ayes, 0 noes.
All right, the ayes do have it. House Bill 114 moves on to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman,
Chairman.
members.
That brings us to item number 4 on our calendar. It's going to be House Bill 123 by Chairman Powers. You have a motion and a second. You are recognized for a brief description.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. Abandoned coal mines pose a serious threat to public health, safety and welfare, and as well as degrade the environment. And to address these, the Abandoned Mine Lands Program works to reclaim these areas. House Bill 123 will require the department to give a potential creation of any lien due to any reclamation, including how the landowner may avoid a lien. These updates are necessary to ensure the receipt of $8.5 million in annual federal funding for the AML program under the Infrastructure Investments and Jobs Act. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I renew my motion.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Powers. Members, you have heard the description of House Bill 123. Any discussion? Leader Camper, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sponsor, for the bill.
Thank you.
Could you explain how the lien would work? I know over the years we haven't had to use it, but with the expansion of the program, it may be possible that we would. Could you explain how the lien process would work should we have to go down that road?
Chairman Powers.
Yes. Thank you, Leader Camper. What happens on that if they reclaim the area and they turned around and sold that area and made a profit off of that? When it improves the value of the land, then they could put a lien on that improved value because we went in there with our grant money and improved the land for them. And if they want to use it for recreation or use it for their own purpose, then there is no lien. Only if they turned around and sold it and made a profit off of it, they would put a lien on that that amount that was over the market value.
Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the landowner would understand this going into it. It will be disclosed to them that this is a possibility, so they would know ahead of time that if they were to do this, they went into it knowingly that this could happen.
Chairman Powers.
Yes, yes, they would. And of course, they would also know that, they could turn around and resolve that problem before ever lien was ever put on it if they wanted to do it at that time with that increased property value.
Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Sponsor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion. Again, we are on House Bill 123. Hearing none and seeing none, are we ready to vote? Madam Clerk, please open the board. If you're in favor of House Bill 123 moving on to calendar and rules, please vote aye. If you're opposed, please vote no.
You vote no?
Has everyone voted? Would anyone like to change their vote? Hearing none and seeing none, Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 23 ayes, 0 noes.
All right, the ayes do have it. House Bill 123 moves on to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee.
Thank you. That brings us to item number 5. Item number 5 is House Bill 122 by Representative Scarborough. We do have a motion to second. Sir, you're recognized for a description.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, proposed legislation will allow collected fees to be used for the maintenance, use, and improvement of the Tennessee Advanced Communication Network. Currently, these assessment fees are only for the use and the maintenance of the network system. With that, I'll stand by for any questions or comments, and safety is also here for any questions as well.
All right, members, you have heard the description of Representative Scarborough. Do we have any discussion? And I know we have several people on the list up here. We'll begin with Leader Lamberth first.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. The esteemed member does not look familiar to me as an individual who has appeared before finance before. I have to ask, as a freshman, is this your first bill in this committee?
Representative Scarborough.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, sir, it is indeed, Leader.
Leader Lamberth.
Mr. Chairman, he gave a better answer because when he was in the committee earlier in the session, he was a little bit, confused as to whether or not he was his first bill in this committee. So I feel good about the fact that he's confident that it's his first bill. Now, here's my follow-up question, Mr. Chairman, if I may. Do you anticipate that this will be your last bill in this committee this year?
Representative Scarborough.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do not.
Leader Lamberth.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, that was quite confident there. I will tell you, I'll leave it up to the other members, but I do think it's important that you have time to at least can discuss with them on whether or not you have other bills that don't have my name or Leader Cochran's name on them to help you with that. And so, Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion, roll this to the hill of today's calendar.
All right, you've heard the motion. Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, seeing none. Without objection, we roll this to the hill of the calendar for today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Let's move on to item number 6, and let's let Chairman Baum show us how it's done. We're on House Bill 695. We have a motion to second. Chairman Baum, oh, there he is. Chairman Baum, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman Hicks. In the state of Tennessee, counties are permitted to levy a mineral severance tax on the condition that revenue from that tax is used to build county roads. And by minerals, we have in mind things like sand, gravel, sandstone, chert, and limestone. However, in our Tennessee code, we do have a cap on what that tax can be. Since 1985, the cap has been 15 cents per ton. This is a bill that would gradually raise that cap in our code to 20 cents per ton by 2025, or by July the 1st of 2025, to 25 cents per ton by 2030, and to 30 cents per ton by 2035. However, for the actual tax to be raised, the local or county government would have to approve a tax increase by a 2/3 majority. This is a bill that is the result of an agreement between the Tennessee County Highway Officials Association, the Tennessee Road Builders Association, and the aggregate industry.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Baum, very much. Members, you've heard the description. Any discussion? Again, we're on House Bill 695. Hearing none and seeing none, are you ready to vote? Madam Clerk, please open the board. Members, please signify aye if you're in favor of House Bill 695 moving on to calendar and rules. If you are opposed, please vote no. Have all members voted? Would anyone like to change your vote? Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 21 ayes, 0 nos.
All right, the ayes do have it. House Bill 695 moves on to calendar and rules. Thank you, Chairman. Moving on to item number 7, House Bill 444 by Chairman Hulsey. You have a motion to second. Chairman, you're recognized.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and committee. Under current law in the state of Tennessee, housing authorities and community development agencies can, under eminent domain, take private property from its owners and transfer that private property to another private owner for private development and private benefit when they call it a blighted area. And that's the terminology that's in law, blighted area. What this bill does, it changes blighted area to blighted property. And the reason that's important is because if you have a neighborhood that's got 75 homes in it and 3 of them are truly blighted, a housing authority can take all 75 because it's in a blighted area. And this bill changes the terminology to blighted property so that they can only take the piece of property that is blighted itself and not the rest of it. Still allows them to do all the things that they do, and they can use eminent domain when they have to. There is one other difference in this bill, and you can't take agricultural land by eminent domain unless it's for a public use. And that's pretty much the bill.
Thank you, Chairman Hulsey. Members, you've heard the description of House Bill 444. Any discussion? Chairman Williams, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, does this have anything to do with gold bullion?
Chairman Hulsey.
If we can take by blighted property a place big enough to put that in there, yes, sir, it would.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chairman Williams. Careful what you ask for. Members, further discussion. Again, we're on House Bill 444. Hearing Representative Freeman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. And I've heard this bill a couple of times and have one question. You keep saying area and not property. Is this happening in Tennessee? Is there an example of a housing authority condemning 75 houses because of one house being blighted?
Chairman Hulsey.
2 cases that I'm aware of. One now next to Chattanooga, they actually tried to take 2,500 homes at one swoop. There was another one up where 40 and 81 split, and there's a section of 4 or 5 miles there that they actually tried to take that whole strip to develop an industrial park, and half of that was agricultural land. So yes, sir.
Representative Freeman.
And then do I understand correctly, are we now changing the law that if a housing authority condemns agricultural land, it can only be used for public use? Is that right? Currently, that's not the case?
Chairman Hulsey.
That I'm not positive that that's not already the case, but in this bill, that is the case. You can only take agricultural land under eminent domain to use for public use.
Representative Freeman.
Okay, so we're not sure that it is current law, or you're not sure that that's what it does?
I'm not sure that I'm positive that this bill does that, but I'm not sure if that's in current law or not.
Okay, thank you for indulging me.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Representative Parkinson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Chair, this may be a question for legal, possibly, or maybe the sponsor can answer it. I'm looking, and it says when a housing authority or other condemning authority, who are the other condemning authorities?
One other that I know of is a community development agency can do it as well.
Okay. And Mr. Chair, I would like to ask legal, are there other condemning authorities outside of those 2 that were named by the sponsor?
Okay. Okay, at this time, we will go to legal. We will go to Mr. Joel Hayes. Mr. Joel Hayes, you are recognized. You don't have to. Okay.
Joel Hayes, Office of Legal Services. Representative Parkinson, I would have to look into that. So I don't have an answer off the top of my head.
Any more comments Representative Parkinson?
No, sir. And this would be back to the sponsor. And the reason why I was asking that question is because I did get a call from I believe I don't know if I don't think he's a constituent, but a Memphian that was saying that there were individuals that had the ability to exercise eminent domain in some cases. And I was just trying to see if that was actually the case and would that be considered under other condemning authorities?
Mr. Hayes, I don't know if that was a comment back to you or if that was just a comment in general.
I don't either.
Okay. All right. Well,
It's called theft.
well said, Representative Parkinson. Okay, let's move on. Next on the list is Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the bill, Representative Halsey. I have a question, though. Within the bill, are we changing the definition of what blighted property is? Or is it similar to what's already in law around blighted area?
Chairman Halsey.
Yes, thank you. In the bill, it's pretty much similar to exactly what you have now. One or more of the following: a roof or roof framing elements, support walls, beams or headers, foundations, footings in subgrade conditions, light and ventilation, fire protection, including egress, internal utilities, including electricity, gas, and water, flooring and flooring elements or walls and insulation and exterior envelope, and they haven't been remedied within a reasonable time.
Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Halsey. The question I was asking, is this different than what's currently in current law on identifying blighted property? And you're saying it's pretty much the same?
That is correct.
Okay. Secondly, so one of these things could be true and they could come in and take your property?
Chairman Halsey.
Under existing law, I think it mirrors what's in the law now.
Okay.
Involving one or more of those issues, yes.
Okay. Mr. Chairman.
Leader Camper.
Okay, thank you for that. And then who determines the reasonableness of the action?
Chairman Halsey.
Actually, that came up the first committee that I presented this and
good.
we didn't, there is no definition for reasonable in this law. And that might have been an oversight on my part, but there isn't a definition for it.
Leader
Okay.
Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Halsey.
Thank you. Further discussion? Hearing none and seeing none, are we ready to vote? Madam Clerk, please open the board. We are now voting on House Bill 444, moving on to calendar and rules. Please cast your vote. Has everyone voted? Would anyone like to change their vote? Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 22 ayes, 0 noes, 1 present not voting.
All right, the ayes do have it, and House Bill 444 moves on to calendar and rules. Thank you, Chairman. That brings us back to item number 5 on the calendar. Item number 5 is going to be House Bill 122 by Representative Scarborough. You have a motion to second. You're recognized for a description. Don't recommend it, but you're recognized for one. Question's been called. Any objection? Calling the question. Hearing none and seeing none, Madam Clerk, please open the board. Members, please cast and confirm your vote. Has everyone voted? Would anyone like to change their vote? Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 25 ayes, 0 noes.
All right, the ayes do have it, and House Bill 122 moves on to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Scarborough. All right. That does conclude our bill, so we will now move on to our budget hearings with the Department of Environment and Conservation. Members, please refer to the dashboard again for all your presentation documents. And before we begin, without objection, we will go out of session. Without objection, we're out of session. And Commissioner, it's good to see you and your team here with you. And if you would, we will begin with the introductions. And I just want to remind everyone that before you speak, please just pause. The red light will come on the mic, and we do control that up here. So all you got to do is wait for the red light. We'll turn it on. And members, just to remind you here on here on the diocese that once you are recognized, you may go back and forth. If you get into running dialogue, I may stop you, but otherwise, once you're recognized, please go back and forth. All right. Thank you all again for being here. Commissioner, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Commissioner David Salyers, Department of Environment Conservation. To my right is Dr. Ronnie Atkins, Deputy Commissioner, Bureau of Environment. To my left, Chief Operating Officer and Deputy Commissioner Karen Simo over our Bureau of Operations and Strategic Engagement. And then to the far left over there, Greer Tidwell, Deputy Commissioner of Bureau of Conservation. And I know I only have 5 minutes, so I'm pretty much going to cut to the chase. And it wasn't, I would say it wasn't too long ago when this department was known for being an inefficient, red tape, laced, over-regulating government agency detached from the needs of citizens and businesses. And those days are over. TDEC is lean, we're effective, responsive, firmly aligned with the needs of Tennesseans we serve. We've cut the red tape. We've modernized our technology to help us permit more efficiently. We provide excellent customer service. We're fiscally responsible, investing only in projects and programs that matter to Tennesseans. We work with industry to achieve compliance instead of waiting for them to fail before acting. We're cleaning up legacy contamination and putting properties back into productive use, especially in rural communities. We're cleaning up Oak Ridge. Our air is as clean as it's been in decades. Our state parks are the best in the nation and on their way to becoming the most accessible in the nation. Simply put, when the General Assembly invests in us, we deliver for Tennesseans. And our proposed budget today continues this positive momentum by conserving Tennessee, which helps to grow Tennessee. And while I won't have time to go through our budget line by line, I do want to highlight a couple of key items in our proposal. This budget puts an end to the state park's deferred maintenance backlog, positioning us to take care of our assets, especially several brand new lodges and visitor centers for future generations of Tennesseans to enjoy. We'll also ensure operational efficiency and support visitor experience, which translates to more revenue. The General Assembly and the governor have approved a record number of new state parks, enhanced natural areas, and funding for outdoor recreation in Tennessee. This includes 9 new parks shown in red on the map. And these record investments in the outdoors have and will create substantial new opportunities for those communities and drive economic growth. The proposed budget includes funding for 3 new state parks: Dry Branch, located at the intersection of Perry, Hickman, and Lewis counties; a state park at the current Cherokee removal of Memorial Park in Meigs County; and what will be the first Blue Way State Park located along the Clinch River in East Tennessee. The budget would also fully staff 2 of the 9 state parks that have already been named. And as some of you may have heard, nuclear power is the future. TVA, the state, and private industry are all in on nuclear. And this is a race between Tennessee and a couple other states to see who will be the first, and Tennessee is leading the way. The proposed budget further entrenches Tennessee as the epicenter of this nuclear renaissance by setting up a regulatory program with our own state instead of leaving it to the federal government to regulate. The state will work with prospective licensees and the public to ensure operation of a fusion system is done safely and efficiently, helping attract businesses in the nuclear industry to Tennessee. And finally, this budget provides funding for a comprehensive regional water resource plan for the Duck River. This funding will not only help preserve and protect the most ecologically diverse freshwater river in North America, it will serve new industry, agriculture, and a growing population. It'll also serve as a template for regional water source plans across the state to ensure long-term water needs are met in Tennessee. So I'd like to thank you for your time and your investment and your trust in us. I welcome your questions.
All right, Commissioner, thank you very much for your presentation. We do have several folks on the list. Let's begin with Chairman Williams. Chairman Williams, you are recognized.
Thank you, Commissioner. Pleasure to see you again. I just had a couple of questions. I know you're a lean green machine, but I did have some question about your full-time positions. In 2017, 2018, I know we've added a lot of parks, but since that time, we've gone from 2,200 authorized full-time positions to an increase to 2,548, which is an increase of about 321 new positions. Of those positions, you've also asked for an additional 43 positions in this year's budget. But since that time, even though we've added all those positions and expect to add some more, we have about 300 positions that are still vacant full-time positions in TDEC. Why do we need these additional positions if the positions that we have funded, this General Assembly has already funded, aren't currently being filled? If you could help me understand the difference. Typically, we would see maybe you transfer an existing unutilized position to a new role.
Yes, sir. Hello, I'm Deputy Commissioner Karen Simo. We do have a rolling number of positions that are less than 1 year. So of our current 333 positions, that was pulled in February. Vacancies are always a snapshot in time. So we pulled our stats in February. We had 330 full-time positions, 274 had been vacant less than a year. So that reflects our Tennessee State Parks primarily. And so versus when you look at our midsummer numbers, those go down because we have a seasonal employment cycle. And of the vacancies that are long-term vacancies, meaning they're more than 1 year, we currently have 59 long-term vacancies, which since 2023, we had over 100, we had a 107 long-term. So we've been actively utilizing and repurposing all of our long-term vacancies in order to address our needs without coming to the General Assembly for those additional positions. So
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. The challenge too is have constituents who work those seasonal positions. I recognize that. But is there a differentiation between a seasonal position and a full-time equivalent position? My assumption is they're different. Are you saying that they're the same as it relates to funding?
So yes, so as it relates to funding, we use what's termed a job share is the HR phrase. So in our budget, it reflects as a single full-time position. However, we can fill it with up to 9 individual employees that are each working part-time seasonal hours. So that is, so in our budget, it reflects as a one full-time employee. They work the equivalent hours of one full-time employee.
Yeah. So the unique nature of this is that I noticed that you reverted $1.2 million this year of the budget because in this as it relates to those full-time equivalents. There's another $8 million in state funding associated with those 312 positions. I guess my question is why, if you have so many vacancies that represent 10% of your total workforce, why are we only reverting $1.2 million back?
Of the 8 million that's reflected, like I said, part of that is it's a snapshot in time. So it's not that truly that 8 million is the annualized salary of one of the positions over the whole year. So since they're constantly becoming vacant and getting refilled, we don't actually realize $8 million in, savings that could be reverted. Since the majority of them are actually only open for less, or they're open for a portion of the year and not for a whole year.
Okay, thank you. I'm a little bit of a visual learner, and so maybe we can get together and you can better explain that to me, because
absolutely
it just seems to me like that the ratio should be similar to the reversion than it currently is now, regardless, particularly if you're funding a full-time equivalent position with 9 seasonal hires.
Yes, sir.
So I look forward to having a continued discussion about that, but thank you for answering my question.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chairman Williams. Next on the list will be Chairman Hawk. Chairman Hawk, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner and your team. I appreciate you all very much, not only the work that you do, but your friendship as well. Thank you very much. I get the honor of talking about state parks, and may touch on whatever you all want to talk about, but I'm going to go to Deputy Commissioner Tidwell for a lot of this. And I will tell you, David Crockett is one of the most famous Tennesseans, and his birthplace state park is in my district. As you kind of meander through Greene County, Washington County, along the banks of the Nolichucky River. And we were completely destroyed during Hurricane Helene. It's gone. And it's hard for me to explain that to folks. But I've got several questions I want to ask about state parks in general. But if you could give this committee a little bit of an update of what you've seen at David Crockett Birthplace State Park and what we may be proposing to go forward with that park, just to hopefully be some music to my ears, if you could. Thank you.
Yes, Chairman Hawk. I'm glad to share a little bit about what's going on with David Crockett Birthplace State Park. We have a full intention to have a complete rebirth there of that park. It broke our hearts to see what happened in Helene in so many ways, in our neighborhoods, to our own employees and teammates, as well as to the functioning amenities there at David Crockett Birthplace State Park. It was literally wiped off the map. I think there is a deep desire in that community to be involved, and we have seen that and celebrated that as park operations by pulling folks in to do some of the cleanup in a very careful, safe way, and also letting the community know that they will be involved and have a voice in the plan for the rebirth and what amenities and how it's going to be laid out at David Crockett Birthplace. That process of engaging with the community, the first step was to bring on a landscape architect planning firm. We had our internal kickoff for that master planning for the park last Friday. And part of that game plan, frankly, is to set up the time to be talking with the community about what is most important to that local community. Because there's no doubt in my mind, I've not only been to the banks of the Nolichucky there, I've been on the Nolichucky, floating down it past that park. It is such a beautiful resource. The community has such a deep love for that park. We have every intention, and part of the funding was already included in the special session. We expect the rest of the funding to come through the insurance process for the state of Tennessee to have funds along with a leverage on the private sector. We already have a friends group up there that has purchased an 1830s era cabin and donated that to the park. And we intend to sort of take this iconic person, David Crockett, and push that out a little bit more on a national level, frankly, to see what more private sector funding we can add to the state funding and get a good leverage on that. So we're excited about the future up there. We're brokenhearted about what happened with Helene. So thank you for the question.
Well, and thank you. That is music to my ears. And really, it's hard to explain much of what we've seen in the videos. It's hard to explain unless you've seen it yourself. And thank you for the numerous visits that you made there and your team as well. I do want to go down the road of our other state parks. In the General Assembly and proposed by this governor, we've put over $700 million towards state parks over the last 6 years, and a good chunk of change going in this budget document as well. I'll give you an opportunity to talk about both the capital projects we've got proposed for state parks, and as well as some how we're handling some inflationary costs and how we may be planning for that as we go forward. And just a third question on top of that, the shoreline stabilization projects. So three things: what we're looking at with capital projects, how we're handling the inflationary factors, and the shoreline stabilization. Thank you, Chairman.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, thank you again for the question. And in reference to the capital investments, each of the parks that we've proposed to open up and the 9 that have already been proposed and substantially budgeted are designed and sort of programmed, if you will. That's the park professional phrasing, is programming to meet the needs of highlighting the specific resources for that specific park and to recognize the economic capacity of that park to lift up the regional communities around that park. So you'll see in the details of the budget request, numbers specifically identified for the types of visitor center or the campground or the kayak launch that we're proposing with the programming of each of those specific parks. and glad to go into further detail, but I think that's, I just wanted to share that it's not a one size fits all anymore. It's a strategic approach for getting these parks up and going as fast as we can in a way that the whole community, as well as the team of park professionals like Kim Moore and others, will be proud to call those new parks part of the Tennessee State Park family. It's a brand promise level of design. In terms of dealing with inflation, a couple of things going on there that come to our minds operationally. One is the critical nature of the request to increase the maintenance funding. We're asking for another 6.2 million, literally to make sure we don't start sliding back on that slope that state parks lived on for so many years, where we're building up deferred maintenance, as well as recognizing that we want our state parks to have that brand promise achieved and to operate efficiently and safely for our visitors. So that 6.2 is designed to be able to carry us into the future for quite a ways and keep our parks up to snuff the way we want them to be. And in terms of the shoreline stabilization, those three parks, off the top of my head, the two in Chattanooga, as well as Paris Landing, we have an opportunity in this budget request to make sure that the shorelines are not continuing to slough off. They've been in disrepair for quite a while. And frankly, sir, despite being a civil engineer, the projected cost for doing that, I hadn't done that kind of work in my career, and it sort of surprised me how much it's going to take to get that done. But it's important work that we think absolutely needs to be done. Those shorelines are an important part of the visitor experience. They're an important part of taking care of the resource, and we think that's a critical piece of the budget request. I appreciate you pointing that out.
Chairman Hall. All right, thank you. Next on the list, Chairman Grills. Chairman Grills, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I start with a few questions, I wanted to introduce my wife and daughter. After asking me several times, today is being March the 11th. 19 years ago today, she got possession of me. And she's still hanging around. And she wishes she'd have kept her receipt, I promise you. But she's the reason I get up in the morning, so I love you. Yeah. Why do I get emotional when she shows up for stuff? All right, let's talk. Let's get mean with T-Deck. How about that? No, hey, y'all brought up a lot of questions about the Duck River and all, and the ARPA funds that the federal government is giving us. There's 1.35 billion in ARPA funds used to address the Duck River. How has TDEC used those funds to promote conservation, and what have they been used for? How are you coming along with those funds? Who wants to deal with that?
The ARPA funds, we have actually granted them to all counties in the state, as well as municipalities that operate a wastewater infrastructure system, drinking water, wastewater, stormwater. So that has been granted out to all the systems across the whole state for them to implement local projects.
Have they used all those funds?
We are in the process of doing it. We have expended 250 million. We have 685 million. Yeah, sorry, when I millions and billions, I got to add a lot of zeros in my head, of currently underway, like approved procurements. And then we have about 20 months left in the grant project, and we currently do not have any communities that are not meeting our required milestones. So we work very closely with all of our grant recipients and to make sure that they are on track to meet the federal deadlines.
That's just within the Duck River, or is
No,
this
sir,
across
that's
the state?
statewide. So within the Duck River, there was some specific grants to those local communities just for the Duck River communities. I don't have the specific numbers right offhand. I do recall 6.6 million in a state strategic project to the Duck River Utility District. But in addition to the ARPA investments in the Duck River, there's additional investments proposed for this year, which are not associated with ARPA.
And I'd be happy to talk about that, Chairman Grills, if you'd like.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, there's 24.5 million in our budget. 20 million of that will be working on the Duck River. as the governor has said, to grow Tennessee, we need to conserve Tennessee. And the Duck River is the most ecologically diverse river in North America. Population growth and industrial growth and agricultural needs are great. So really zeroing in on the Duck River so we can have both. So we can keep it as a biodiverse river, but at the same time provide for the needs that are there. So 24.5 million, 24 engineering design, hydraulic modeling. Other would be setting up programmatic plans around how to regionalize that so there's cooperation amongst utility districts and communities. In addition to that, there's $2 million that will be used to get, I believe, an additional $6 million-ish in a grant for habitat conservation plan in the upper part of that watershed. I have the fortune to chair the Duck River Watershed Project Partnership. We just kicked off our first meeting last week, and we'll be providing reports to the governor and the General Assembly on recommendations on how to move forward on the Duck.
So you got the $100 million non-recurring. How do you expect to use those monies? And are you going to use those to leverage dollars from the federal government, or what exactly are you planning?
That right there would be incentive money. I think in the state, the governor called that seed money for those utility districts to regionalize and partner together. Overall, the solution in the Duck River is hundreds of millions, and it's going to take 5 to 15 years to get to that place where we have the needs. But that money would be used still to be determined, as proposed, but and how to incentivize that watershed.
So that money is just going to be put in a fund, and
it will be put out much like ARPA funds were for incentivization around regionalization. Could be used from a pipeline from the Cumberland or Tennessee River to really solve the problem.
You bring up the pipeline. So the governor signed the executive order with the pipeline from the Tennessee River to the Duck River. Or maybe you need to add a little.
There's an executive order 108, which forms the partnership, which is around the Duck River, which is designed to develop a template that can be used across the state where we're having these other water supply issues. Duck River is not the only place. It's the most imminent of the locations where we have those needs.
Sure.
But there's several places on the plateau in the Sequatchie Valley where we're faced with similar water supply type issues. And it really takes a regional type solution to help get to that place.
All right. I appreciate that. Let's go back to the ARPA funds real quick. Those funds that have been used or have not been used, is there any chance that any of those funds will not be able to be used and have to be sent back?
No, sir. We have our first plan, our plan A, on how they'll be expended, which are preferences for the local communities that have received them as grants. In the event a current grantee is unable to utilize them, we have a number of risk factors that we're actively watching for. And in the event we identify someone that's not on track, those funds will be rescinded with full communication with the grantee. And there is additional, what we call our Plan B list, additional projects that are either complete or underway that the money can be repurposed to avoid any reversion to the federal government.
And Chairman, if I can, just a couple other questions. I want to brag on your staff, Allie. They've been extremely responsive anytime we've had a question, whether it's my constituents or other constituents. They've been really great about, getting back with them. So I really appreciate that. Also want to brag about West Tennessee River Basin Authority and what they do in West Tennessee. And that's been you were there for several years. We'll give you the credit there, Commissioner.
Thank you, sir.
They've done a fantastic job of what they've done as far as keeping the channelization and all of those rivers and creeks open. Have we looked at TDEC as a whole to take that model that we've had in West Tennessee and replicate that in other parts of the state? Because what Chairman Hawk was talking about with the flooding this past year, how West Tennessee River Basin Authority could play, or that template could play a huge role in preparing for the next or preventing the next natural disaster.
The needs across the state of Tennessee are highly variable. And in West Tennessee, because all the streams and rivers were, I say all loosely, but were channelized in the early 1900s up through the 70s. So you have highly unconsolidated sediments that are very, very erosive. You have different needs in different parts of the state. I think there was a piece of legislation or a bill that was potentially moving through to add 4 counties or so on the other side of the river. The needs would be different than the Basin Authority uses amphibious track hose. They float up and down and remove log jams. The needs would be different in other locations. I think perhaps in some of the more rural counties, it would be more of a technical need, engineering support to come up with solutions that can help solve some of the flooding issues in some of the communities.
Have you guys looked at maybe implementing something similar to that for Middle and East Tennessee?
The
For those
department
technical
has
needs?
not. The Basin Authority is administratively attached to us, and they are managed by a board of directors. So, would never want to get in front of that board on what they want to do, because there is some concern that the great work that they're doing in West Tennessee could be diluted if
That's
they
what
were
we
to
want
move over.
And that's the reason I want to make sure that whenever we do in West Tennessee, that if they want to do something similar to that in Middle Tennessee, they start their own, and we keep what's working well in West Tennessee, leave it alone. Thank you so much, Chairman.
Thank you. Next on the list, Chairman Faison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. T-Dex, good to have y'all with us. Want to brag on how amazing our parks are. One of my favorite things about state government is our state parks. And we're national award winners for how good they are. I do want to point out that y'all forgot East Tennessee is still moves past Knoxville, and nothing new is past Knoxville. And be certainly nice of y'all to consider that on your way out over the next 2 years, that East Tennessee moves our way. But I do have a question. Our parks are such a huge asset to our state, but our children are a huge asset to our state as well. They're our future. And I wanted to know, does TDEC have a policy that you engage our local schools, whether it's our public schools, private schools, anything that's locally around? Do y'all engage them and set things up for our kids to be able to come and explore what our nature has to offer and teach them how to be good conservationists?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I'll answer in brief, and then if you don't mind, I'd like to turn it over to our new head of State Park Operations, Kim Moore, to add any details that might flesh this out. But yes, Chairman Faison, we do. That has been growing and is thriving at this point. But I'd sure like to take a minute and let Kim Moore answer that in more detail.
Thank you, sir. So to answer your question, I don't think we have a policy. But what we do is we're actively engaged in our communities through our interpretation and program and education department. And through that department, our programming will touch about 70 to 100,000 kids every year. And that's either on-site or off-site. We've made it easier for our teachers to get in touch with our schools. We have built partnerships, whether public or private. And these partnerships through our Tennessee State Park Conservancy have provided access for our teachers to bus students to our parks, to take away those fees in areas that can't afford to pay for the buses to come to those parks. So we're busting them in by the loads. And we're also making the logistics just a little bit easier by working with the school systems to build on their curriculums and build programs towards their curriculums. And then we go into the schools and they come out to the site and do the same thing as well. And we build into their historical curriculums, their biology curriculums. And that way, when they do a program, it's not just for fun, it's educational as well. And kind of just to touch on that, it hits on with me a little bit because I've grown up in state parks for 37 years with state parks. And my mom worked at the state park. When we moved here, I knew the value of those programs in Tennessee State Parks at an early age, and grew through that. And where we are today is to historic numbers of where we were back then, and the importance and the dedication and the commitment that we've put towards doing just exactly what you're asked is there.
Thank
you. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next on the list will be Chairman Boyd. Chairman Boyd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and TDEC and Commissioner, it's great to see you today. And Commissioner, I appreciate your leadership on the Nuclear Advisory Council. And the question I have is with regard to the state level nuclear fusion regulatory program that we're setting up. Can you speak a little bit more about that and really how significant that is that we're going to be doing that at the state level? And then talk a little bit about the money that's being asked in the budget for that, where that's going to go.
Okay. Yeah. So certainly, we are really big. We work with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission on fission. Fusion is moving very quickly in our state. And Chairman Boyd, thank you for your service on the council. And one of the things there, we are an agreement state. Our authority has been delegated to us to manage certain radioactive materials and the way that we work with that. And that's why fusion will fall under that category. So we would be responsible for implementing a program there. A lot of the industry that's here, including Type 1 Energy, who is doing a pilot fusion project at the Bull Run coal-fired steam plant. So they actually have that there. But industry is really encouraging us to have that regulatory program. And we are in we're going to regulate more easily, more efficiently, much quicker. Nuclear Regulatory Commission is very, very slow. As you a part of that committee, that was one of our objectives. Our council was to figure out how to break down some of those obstacles or regulatory hurdles that were there so we could shorten that time frame. So we're doing that. We're in a race right now with Massachusetts, who can get there first. We're in a race with 2 other states, around the country as to who is going to lead in the nuclear renaissance, and in particular in fusion. Virginia has made a claim that they will be first to have operational fusion, and but we're there. We still have that opportunity, and Type 1 has a really, really good machine that will probably make it.
Thank you, Chairman Boyd. Next on the list, Chair Lady Moody. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for being here, Commissioner. We had an opportunity a couple years ago to go to Paris Landing. Fabulous. The lodge is fabulous. And we took a night walk to call up owls with the Rangers.
I thought you were going to say snipe.
No.
No, okay.
No.
I'm sorry. Yes.
But for the Rangers, we had to quit calling the owls. They were starting to swoop us. They were so good at it. So if you get to go, go. But the other thing I wanted to give a shout out to is that our area is the scenic Hatchie River. And, that's the only unchanneled river in the lower Mississippi basin. And so we love our Hatchie River. And just wanted to mention, too, that we have an active Hatchie River Conservancy. And so I'm thankful they're there looking out for protecting that. It's so beautiful.
It is.
And well used to the point we need another some help with parking when everybody wants to be out on the river. But just thank you for all that, and maybe catch up with you on some other things with it. But thank you.
Thank you. And I will say that with our beautiful state parks, it's not just our state parks. We have Shannon Bowles in the audience. Shannon, wave your hand, our Director of Hospitality, who came out of private industry, award-winning operations at private hotels, but she has really brought that standard of care and that level of service to our staff. So really, really pleased with that.
All right. Thank you, Chair Lady. Next on the list is Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner and team. My question is around Teal Fuller Park. And I did a tour this past summer. They were concerned about investment in the pool and just cleaning up a lot of the debris around the park. Have you all included in your budget any money for Teal Fuller Park, or could you give us an update on what's happening with Teal Fuller Park?
If I may, Leader Camper, thank you for the question. One of the very first things I had the privilege to do 2.5 years ago when I came into this position was get to know Park Manager Jessica Gossett and actually elevate her into the position where she serves now. And very impressive person, young in her career, but so much promise with Manager Gossett. And I know I want to ask Director Moore to fill in some details here. Excuse me, Leader. Fill in some details, but I know that we have been focused on elevating some of the positions at that park in particular, as well as making some investments on some of the facilities there. And if I stalled long enough for you to kind of put the details together, sir?
Maybe.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. So just to share what he was talking about with the positions, we're actually in the process of reclassifying one of the job share positions that Karen had talked about earlier into a full-time benefited position. So it will help us maintain that position 12 months out of the year and cover that position with benefits, with full benefits. So that's in the works. We're also in the works of transferring a position, and it's actually with our People and Development Department right now with a park ranger position. A new park ranger is being assigned to T.O. Fuller State Park. It's a request that's been made for several years, and we have this opportunity to do this now. So we're hoping within the next weeks, maybe this week, by the end of this week, we hope to see that position transferred to T.O. Fuller and start working on the hiring of that position. We've also, to answer your question pertaining to budgets, we've also, I don't know if you got a chance to go into the office, we've updated the office area internally and are actually working on a grant to update the gift shop area where they have a lot of open space and then improve the gift shop area. So that is in the works as well. We've also done some bathroom renovation. And we're also looking at a couple of other things to work on at the park that we have addressed. And one of those is a security gate as well at the park entrance to help better monitor the traffic that's coming in and out of the park at different hours. So does that answer your question, ma'am? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It does. I was curious about the pool. Was there some funding available to do some type of upgrades on the pool?
Yes, ma'am.
area?
We are currently doing that as we speak. We have researched. Our maintenance team has looked at the pool, looked at the problems, and we're in the process of it is out for bid. We've not had any successful folks to come in and bid on the project yet, but the project is out for bid. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Moore. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Next on the list is Chairman Vaughn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got a few questions here about the old mega site. Your department's received about $4 million a year recurring for establishment of necessary infrastructure and environmental readiness at the site. I think it came out to be like 37 positions that's been budgeted. How many of those are filled to date? And just out of curiosity, where are they going to be officed?
Yeah, I can't answer the question specifically. I know a lot of those will be in the Memphis and Jacksonville office. Could be some locally in the central office because that was done a few years back. So I'd have to get you some details on that. I can't bore down into that. So
Okay,
today.
so can you hazard a guess on how many have been filled?
I would, off the top of my head, I would say all of them or the majority of them, because we have established a policy that any positions that you all provide to us, we have to establish them and fill them within a year unless the one exception is some of the state park positions because we're waiting on the park to be built. But absent that exception, we have implemented a requirement internally that positions have to be filled. And that they would all be within the Department of Water Resources, I believe. And they have been one of our most active programs in terms of effectively managing their vacancies. But we can get specifics for those 37, but
Thank you.
they
Thank
should
you
have
very
been filled.
much. Am I good, Mr. Chairman?
You're recognized,
All right,
sir.
thanks. One of the issues that many of us are concerns that many of us from West Tennessee have is that will the mega site meet its promise with regards to bringing prosperity to the region and the small towns of West Tennessee? And one of the vehicles that we were hopeful would increase sewer capacity and water capacity in the region was the ARPA funds. Could you share with us I know that we had stats on how much of the ARPA grants had been doled out, but have we seen a healthy investment in the rural towns surrounding the mega site with regards to investment in this program and utilization of the program for their water and wastewater infrastructure?
Yes, sir. In terms of ARPA funds, we had two strategic projects specifically identified for the mega site. One was an engineering study that was done at the beginning of the ARPA term to provide the local leadership kind of a slate of options on how they might solve their regional wastewater issues, because that was the predominant issue that we were asked to look at. We've also given a state strategic grant of, I believe it is $8.8 million to Tipton County as the regional partner to address, I don't recall exactly everything that the mayor is doing with that in Tipton County. We can get additional resources. And those two strategic grants are in addition to all of the local investments that have been made to all of the counties and local municipalities as well. But I'm happy to get a more detailed listing if that would be of interest to you.
That very much would. I would appreciate that a lot. Mr. Chairman, I just got a couple other, if you don't mind. All right, going back to the Duck River, you said that $20 million for an engineering study?
Engineering, modeling, yes, sir.
That's a lot of studying. So last thing I'll bring up, this is more of a personal point. Since Chair Lady Moody mentioned the Hatchie River, I'm fortunate enough that my family has owned almost a mile of the frontage on it for several decades. And I've got a beaver hut on there that's driving me nuts. How much trouble would I have gotten into if I'd have lit that thing up with a little tannerite?
I think if,
Hypothetically, of course.
hypothetically,
of course, yes.
Just kidding. We'll answer that off the record.
I have a friend that has done some of that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I want to go back just for a second. You mentioned the Clinch River in your slides and, of course, in your presentation as well. And so lots of good things going on the Clinch River. And, of course, I can't let go the Blue Ways, the state park and the visitor center and the maintenance facility over there. Can you talk just a little bit about that, kind of what the vision may be? And Deputy Commissioner Tidwell, this may be right up your alley to be able to answer some of that. So can you just kind of give me an idea of what you guys are seeing out there?
Thank you, Chairman. I'd be glad to. So the Clinch River, of course, runs through an area of Tennessee where, the natural beauty and resources are just phenomenal. We talked about the Duck being one of the most ecologically diverse rivers in the world and the nation, and the Clinch is right up there with it, I understand.
I'd like to think it's just a little bit above.
That's what I was looking for. We could work with competition, sir. And the game plan up there is really to activate that as a Blue Way park. So we're not necessarily bringing people all into one specific piece of state land, but are activating folks up and down the river. It'll make the access better for folks who want to go and just splash around and play, or hang out on a sandbar, or go fish at dawn, which Director Moore and I might be doing. And one of the game plans we have, Chairman Hicks, right now in the programming is to actually put the visitor center in Sneedville, which is one of the communities right up there along the Clinch River. And the design and the idea of that is we don't need to bring people out to hang out in a visitor center where they can't buy a hamburger. I want them to go down to Sneedville where they can spend a little money while they're coming up there into the area and falling in love with it. So that's kind of the game plan, really just kind of light touch. Bringing those park rangers in will help that whole community. They're educators, they're emergency responders, they're law enforcement. They're great members of the community that just build the community up just by having park rangers up there as well. So those are the two kind of highlights of that particular park.
And then kind of staying on the same vein of, again, talking about the Clinch River. And I know we've also mentioned about the small modular reactor there on the Clinch as well. And so the proposed budget included $2.6 million for the department to establish 5 positions for a state regulatory framework for nuclear fusion.